sheet gets passed around. Once you sign in, come outside and join us for our game. We're gonna want to make a straight line of people when we go outside. Probably in like the middle of the grass because you're gonna need room to move. But you can stand just shoulder to shoulder in a straight line on the grass.
And in this game, we're going to take steps forward and steps back. I'm going to make a statement, and when I make that statement, if this happened to you before the age of 18, I want you to take a step back. When Katie makes a statement, if it happened to you before the age of 18, take a step forward. Got it?
Yeah, you're back, she's forward.
Yep, I'm back, she's forward.
Back and forward.
Take a little step so you don't run over us, please. It's true, but
Yeah.
so much space. Okay, so take a step forward if before the age of 18 your family owned their own home.
I got water away. She's that troublemaker.
Small steps, no. Take a step back if a parent was incarcerated.
Take a step forward if you graduated from high school.
Take a step back if your parents were divorced.
Take a step forward if a parent attended college.
Before you were 18. No, the parent before you're 18. And some parents go back to school when the kids finish. Take a step back if you witness drug and alcohol abuse in the home.
Take a step forward if your parents remained together.
Not for them.
Well, it's not always good. Take a step back if your family received public assistance or commodities. Take a step sideways if you don't know commodities.
What if your parent died before you were 18?
That would be one of them.
That would be
we're
on
only
the
doing a short
extended
one. We have
list.
like a 30-question one, but it's just too
They
much.
stay together, okay?
Right. So it would be all the way back there, but I think
And then take a step forward if your family owned a boat or a vacation home. Boat or vacation home. No, any boat.
I know somebody says we had a boat. I'm by you.
Lovely. Yeah.
Take a step back if you were in an environment where domestic violence occurred.
Okay, so if you take a look around you, this kind of shows the average childhood. We're all predispositioned to certain things. Some of us start out with what studies would show are ahead of the games and are more likely to have success based on our childhood experiences. These experiences are from a longer list. They get categorized as ACEs, which are adverse childhood experiences. And they are finding now that the more adverse childhood experiences you have, so the more step backs that a person would take in something like this, the more likely they are to have struggles later on in life, such as poverty. So if we go back inside now, we'll talk more about that.
Kelly, come here.
So 2 handouts are going around. Make sure you get both of them. One is colored. One is just black and white. It looks like a really boring survey on both sides, but it's not. The colored one is going to be kind of some statistical data about adverse childhood experiences that we'll go over a little bit. And then the one without color, the ACEs questions that are generally asked in motivational interviewing and things like that are on the front. So they'll come up with like an ACEs score at the bottom. These ones are a little bit more personal and in-depth than the ones that we asked outside, but still kind of the same concept. You get scores, or you get points for everything that would be technically adverse experience in your childhood. The back of this is going to be a resilience questionnaire. So what they're finding is, well, yes, the more adverse childhood experiences you have, the more predispositioned you are to have issues later on in life. It's not always that case, and sometimes people have a lot of these they have a good network around them. They have good teachers in school, they have good mentors, they have maybe a grandma that stepped in and took care of them and was able to change their life. So these resilience questions on the back show the types of things that can change how someone with a high ACEs score kind of can turn out later in life and the struggles that they'll face. So, they're showing that ACEs scores pretty much break down into 4 different categories. You have a zero score, which almost no one experiences because everyone experiences some kind of issue in their childhood. Then there's some individuals that have a score of 1. Maybe one thing happened. Parents got divorced. One parent was incarcerated, something like that. 2, 3, and then 4 more all get bunched together. Because at that point, generally, they're going together. If you'll see on the color sheet, they break ACEs down into categories. So there's abuse, neglect, and then household dysfunction. When you start getting up into ACEs scores of 4 and more, that's when they start going together. Generally, if there's physical abuse in the household, mother is treated violently, or there's incarceration, or there's mental illness that goes along with them. So they all kind of tie in together and they don't stand independently. 2/3 of the population actually experiences a score of 1 or more. That's most of our population. From that 2/3, 87% of them experience 2 or more. So we're finding that our kids are going through a lot. We're not having this large population that has one adverse thing happen to them. A majority of the people that we're going to come into contact with had a long list of adverse things happen to them that we're now going to try to repair as they get older. Unfortunately, these adverse things they're showing, the higher your ACEs score, there's a direct link between that and so these trauma experiences when they're little and the onset of chronic disease, mental illness, social issues, issues at work, and incarceration. The ACEs model is actually leading towards a trauma-informed environment of communication, which goes along with this resilience thing in the back. Trauma-informed environment is our way of being able to communicate with people with high ACEs scores, figure out what happened to them so that we can communicate better and change things for them. So it's essentially changing the question of someone sitting in front of you and asking you what's wrong with you, which I think we experience a lot in our schools. I know I saw that a lot as a kid. You have a kid misbehaving, it's why? What are you doing? And changing that to what happened to you when you were younger that's causing this behavior now in adulthood. Yes, that's my general overview. Do you guys have any questions about ACEs? Yes.
Just one that I thought of while you were doing that presentation is, when are these statistics compiled? Is this from 5 years ago? Is this from 5 weeks ago? When did these statistics come about?
So the statistics change every year. I want to say that these ones come from a 2014 study. Some of the studies that they're doing go along with the health surveys that the kids take now in high schools. I don't remember exactly what the name of it is.
So really, in our exercise outside, we're pretty outdated compared to the statistics that we're looking at here on the pages.
Mildly, yes.
Kidding.
So when people evaluate this, are they only evaluating in people 18 and older, or are they looking at children who are 18 yet that have already had these things happen? And do you understand what I'm asking?
Kind of.
Like, so you could like look at children and say, how many ACEs did you have, even though they aren't over 18 and they haven't finished collecting their
So the original
ACE
study,
total?
yeah, so the original study that they did in order to develop ACEs was done on a select population of so many people, and they evaluated where they're at now in life versus what happened to them as a child. So it was that smaller population. They saw who now as an adult has issues with alcohol, who has opioid use, who has other substance use disorder, who's been treated for mental health, who's been diagnosed with certain mental health issues, and then they went off of that.
So we can take this information and not only understand people who are adults who are having problems by exploring what happened in their childhood, but also look at children who are having these happen to them right now, and recognize that this is a population that is going to be at risk for these problems
Yeah,
in
it's
the
kind
future
of,
because of what's happening.
yes, so that is kind of a twofold. All of that goes back to the resilience questionnaire then, because as an adult, you're able to see, okay, an adult can pretty plainly communicate to you, the majority of the time, this happened to me, this happened to me, this happened to me. And they're able to answer these questions on the back for the resilience. They understand what it would mean if they had good teacher support, or if they had good parental support, or if they felt loved as a child and things like that. They're able to communicate. So you can get a pretty good idea of where their resilience is in comparison to the ACEs that they had. As a child, it's going to be more focusing on building the resilience from the bottom up rather than analyzing what they currently have. You're going to want to give the child the best resilience score because they're finding that the higher the child's resilience is, the better that they're able to do in life to overcome those ACEs.
And there's tons of training now in the schools for ACEs. And when I was a liaison a few years ago, one of the most impacting visuals for me was a kind of a picture of a classroom, looking at it like a floor plan, and the desks all sitting, and it had colored the different students that had 1 ACE, 2 ACE, 3 ACE, and it was just very impacting for our teachers to look at their classroom and think, oh my goodness, you know, there is a good sized amount of these kids that have 3 or more ACEs that they're dealing with, and they may not be showing much interest in what I'm trying to teach them because of what's happening at home and what has happened in their life, that they're just wondering what they're gonna eat, you know, when they get home or something, and yeah.
And the school system too. There have been a couple of schools in Washington State who have actually taken the ACEs model, evaluated their kids at the beginning of high school experience, seen how many kids they have that fall into each ACEs category, then work on building a resilience with the children within their school system. And so they calculate this child at the beginning of high school had this ACEs score, and they kind of calculate resilience into categories. So they have a low resilience, medium resilience, or a high resilience. You want every kid to have a high resilience. So they see where the kid is then, and then at the end of high school, they evaluate their GPA and their resilience level. And they're finding that the kids who are able to have that support system in high school through their schools, and the schools that work on trying to understand why the problems are occurring, rather than just addressing the problem, are having higher GPAs as a result.
So when you work on resilience, the schools and whatnot, do you start working with the parents and the whole family, or are you concentrating on students?
Yeah, I mean, it's the big picture. It's not just that child sitting in your classroom at that moment as their whole life, I mean, and which has been the way that it's been forever, you know. So now, you know, the training and the education is focusing on the family wellness, you know, as a whole, really finding ways to encourage the parents to have just more communication, more contact, more ways to be involved in the school in positive ways. So like our school, when I was there, we started community dinners that were free to the community and just provided things that would draw the families in so they would have this positive experience of being at the school. And it wasn't about a conference, and it wasn't about my child has done, what has he done now, you know, kind of thing. But it was just, just really looking at the whole life of that child. Yeah, that includes all those things.
And I work with 3 and 5-year-olds, and not only, I'm able to teach the kid, but we teach the whole family. So we bring in ACEs, as a staff, they bring in ACEs and review it, but then we're at the social emotional level. So if you conquer social emotional issues and concerns and work on that, and then bring in the family and work with them, then we're touching bases. And doing activities like, we have a family night, we feed them, it's free, they come. We do home visits or classroom visits. So just building of the family. And you can do it as early as infant, you know, and exposing it to parents and just keep talking about it. And you see something that's not going quite right and they're having a hard time, as a leader in your profession, you know, step in and say, oh, can I help you? Can I give you some pointers? And then those little things can turn things around.
They found a lot that when building resilience in kids, the biggest focus is wanting to communicate with them in a positive manner that keeps their heart rate low. Because all of these things that add up to being ACEs are things that are traumas for them, that are causing them to be hypervigilant in life. So if you emotionally remove yourself from this situation and don't let their ACEs and experiences that they're discussing kind of bring out an emotional reaction in you, because that can trigger the kid too. If you find yourself calm, then the kid will be calm and they're more likely to want to explain things in a calm manner to you. They're finding this to be a positive interaction, because otherwise they're going to be very quick to go into that fight or flight mode as soon as they feel like you're a threat. And you might not see yourself as a threat, but as soon as you're getting that emotional charge from yourself, they'll see it as a threat.
And which those kids are already living in that state of that high stress and that fight or flight. Like their whole systems are just kind of geared that, especially if they've grown up in those situations, they're just wired that way. They're expecting it from adults because that's the way that they've experienced it.
When you're having those kids that have those ACEs scores of 4 or higher, all of their contacts with adults have probably been in a negative manner, because they don't have that support at home. They don't have that mom and dad support that's being positive. So as soon as you as an adult are trying to interact with them, that automatically goes into a threat detection, which makes them want to act aggressively and remove themselves from the situation and be more isolated away from you.
Which brings us back to last week, a couple of things. Build relationships on the positive, because you know you have that little inkling like, oh, something's not quite right. Well, it's going to surface. So if you build that positive relationship before something negative happens. And then it brings us back to last week where we're in a tough profession. We're all in the social field profession. We have to have self-care. We have to take care of ourselves so that when we're in those tense situations and we need to stay calm, we're able to stay calm. Good example, 2 weeks ago, 4-year-old kid threw a chair at me. And people, you know, like, aren't you mad about that? No. I just have to figure out why she threw a chair. She was mad, she was angry, there's a language barrier, but do they throw chairs at home? Maybe. I'm still trying to figure out the puzzle. So I'm not angry, it's just, you know, how do you be angry at a 4-year-old?
You didn't react.
Right, I was just like, oh,
Right.
that's not acceptable, that's not okay, you need to sit here and make your body's calm, and in a calm voice, and they're like, you didn't lose it. I'm like, no, I don't have a choice. Yeah.
If the schools are using this, who else is using it?
I don't know that we can say all schools are using it. I think
That's
that's one of
right.
our challenges.
In a dream world.
Yes, and
Right.
as a system, we can say build relationships
Right.
with kids, and not every adult knows how to do that.
That
And
is
it's
true.
not a part of
That's
teacher
true.
training. And we can build awareness, but then what to do when you know I have those bodies in the seats that have all these factors or characteristics. How do I intervene in ways that will build resiliency and not send them in the other direction? So I think we have lots of work to do around awareness, but then building that, what's the next step? So then what do I do with those kids in my classroom? And it's draining emotionally to
Right.
teachers, so how do you build that piece in as well? As a system, not so we just have pockets and services.
I think schools are also in a tough place, because this model is adopted also by like case managers, counselors, people who interact on a one-on-one level, where when a person is starting to show that flight or flight emotion, they can de-escalate the situation, and there's nothing else, there's no external factor. They can focus on that one child and understand why that's happening. For teachers, they have that one kid in the corner that's throwing a chair because they're feeling triggered from something that happened this morning at home with mom that's been happening for 4 years. But you need that chair to not be thrown right now because of the 30 other bodies in your room, versus being able to have a 20-minute conversation about the kid on why the chair is being thrown.
And just a reminder, it goes a little bit deeper than that, because parents, you know, they probably had lack of ACEs throughout their life, and they most likely haven't dealt with that. So then now they're raising their children, and they have issues and concerns. So it's not just trying to figure out how to help the kid. How do you do all this in a limited amount of time?
With most of us that are teaching, if you looked at the line out there, that have never had most of those experiences.
Right.
And so there's often a disconnect with why that might be.
And that line reminded me of, someone told me the other day, the parents that we need to come to the conferences sometimes don't come to the conferences because, for whatever reason. So out there, you brought up a great point. I was the farthest one back in the line, right? But I chose to change the cycle at 17 years old. And so I chose to change the cycle. But I had a grandma who stepped in, right? I had a grandma who stepped in. So the people that really need to learn about the ACEs and put more into their lives and try to practice those are not the ones standing in the line. Not the ones standing.
And one of the things that, the reasons why we're talking about this is just so that you get an idea of when people in poverty, you don't know what their background is.
Right.
And all of us here start out equal, and some of us are far back, and some of us are way up front. And that's something to keep in mind when you're working with people in poverty, that we don't know where they came from to get where they are today.
I think you brought up a really good point too. The people who need the social network and the positive interactions are the ones who aren't joining it. So things like community meetings and
Family
stuff.
dinners.
Yes, my mom worked at a junior high in Heartland, and her entire school was on free and reduced lunch. And they did, once a month, they had a family dinner that was free. The school hosted it. And they had a huge turnout because they realized that that's how they were able to get people to come out. All of these majority of these families were in poverty and struggling. So by offering this free dinner, they had families come out and then they were able to network with the parents and help them out and hand out resources. It's just being able to get those bodies in the room to be able to communicate with them.
And there was even more just great things that came out of the dinners when I first started them, just watching the interaction between neighbors and community members, visiting and talking in this positive, so that was connecting them, you know, even more. And then one night I had this thought of, I wondered, one particular family, that there they were, all seated around the table having dinner together. And I thought, I bet that they don't have dinner together very often, if they ever do. Because I knew the family, and I just thought, wow, if anything, you know, we have accomplished giving them that experience of having dinner together. And it was, yeah, anyway, I just wanted to cry at that moment. And it was just, you know, kind of the toppings on, it wasn't even the main focus of it, but it was just, there were just so many great things that came out of that, yeah.
Yes.
We have a lot of new staff in our building and stuff, so they're experiencing new experiences too with their children. And I think that when you start at that line, you don't have the experiences they have, so it doesn't even come into your mind to think that way. You know, I might like her, but I'm gonna spit on you. And that happened, you know, someone spit purposely on someone. And the teacher said to just kind of, "Ew, why?" And I said, I had that happen last year, and I asked the child, "Does anyone do that to you?" And she would, and so in my case, it happened to be an older brother, you know, and it was a defense mechanism type of thing. And so we don't think people, the kids in the households have to do what they have to do, you know, to make it. And there's not always supervision of siblings or anything like that, so they may not see things going on. And that child was never told, it's not okay for somebody to spit on you, they shouldn't be doing that to you. It's just the way we operate in our house is the way that he felt. You know, so I think that as not having those experiences, sometimes you don't open up to ask the questions. Does someone do that to you? How did that help you when you're interacting with that person? I felt safer, I had a protection type of thing.
They're actually finding too now that parenthood is not just a trait that you know when a baby comes. That's not natural. It sounds like a bug kind of thing, right? But for so many years, all of these studies that were done assumed humans naturally know how to parent. And they're finding now within the last 10 years that, oh wait, that's not true. Parenting is learned. So people who have these parenting skills pick them up somewhere. They weren't just automatically ingrained, whether that's from the media or from how they were raised or from maybe a friend's family. How they raise their kids is what they see as a norm. And so going off of that, everybody has a different norm.
Exactly,
Like,
that's
right.
right.
My norm as a childhood was everyone ate dinner together at 6 o'clock. For me, that was a norm. I didn't understand that people did things differently until you go into a different household. So for that kid, spitting on someone might be the norm. Brother might spit on him all the time, and then, so that's just, parent doesn't say anything, whereas if your norm wasn't to spit on someone, you wouldn't go back and think of that. I had a kid, when I worked at Boys and Girls Club, I had a kid who threw a hockey stick at me. And it was like this big thing because it was a full-sized hockey stick. And I sat down with the kid and I was like, what are you doing? What are you doing? He was like, well, I was mad. And I was like, I understand that. Well, why did we throw it? And he was like, well, I didn't feel like I was being listened to. And like, and I was like, there it is. Okay. So then it's being able to take a step back and be like, okay, this behavior happened because the kid didn't feel listened to. And then it was, what can I do to make you feel like you're listened to in the future? And the kid was like, oh. And he's like, no one asked him that at home. Being able to take those steps back.
Are there any, I guess I'm asking this to the whole room, but are there any parenting classes out there that are available for parents that aren't mandatory by court and those kind of things?
Yes,
College.
College, go to Centralia College, go to their website, every quarter there's similar or same or different.
That's what I'm doing now, but
Yeah.
it's only 0 to 5 years old that my new job is with.
Where
Okay.
we put on a series of classes last spring for parents. We took a survey and asked what our parents wanted to learn about. And then we found a counselor who was supposed to be wonderful from Olympia. She came down and we could barely get people to come. We advertised it. We reminded them. And
It is, I
and
think
raised
that's
it.
your
It was very
trigger
hard to
there.
get people to come.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
feed them and you
We
feed
fed
them and
Are
you
you
provide
fed 'em?
childcare.
We fed them and provided childcare. And
Did you,
Yeah.
because I would send those flyers to my counselors, because I'm the homeless liaison for Centralia. And the PTO person also did the classes, and she said the people that really needed the classes didn't go. But I think you need to spell it out in your flyers that it's free food and free daycare. And I think if you spell that out on your flyer, it's a visual to the parents.
I didn't do the advertising for it, but I do
Oh,
know that
okay.
And
they,
here's
that
a,
they put in daycare and food.
here's
Oh.
a strategy when you put on like a one-time parenting class. You do it at the end of the month when money might be tighter. So that, we have a week, we have no money and we only have beans in the cupboard.
Yeah.
Oh, if I go here to this parenting class, I'll get a free movie.
Well,
Then I only,
we had to use up the rest
Right.
of our United Way grants, so we had to,
right.
we did them over a period of 2 months.
But if you go on the college website, under Child and Family Studies, is that what we are? Yeah. Child and Family Studies. Well, we're so big, you know, and I'm old, so it was something else a long time ago. But, it should have a list, and each quarter, it might be a continual, or they change it up a little. There's a parenting class out there just for dads. There's teen
You guys have
options.
the Parents in Recovery? Is that you?
Yes, I wonder if that's us.
I don't know who does it. Who does the parents,
There's,
Parenting in Recovery?
I think it's through the college.
it's, yeah.
I think it's through the college.
The second, the one I'm affiliated with is, the second and fourth Monday, on campus is what's called GAP, Grandparents as Parents. It can be any kinship care. It could be any kinship. They partner with an agency out of Olympia, the college does. And the grandparents go into an adult classroom and they have a facilitator, an instructor, and one Monday it's a support group and one Monday it is an educational topic. And both of those times childcare is provided and we provide a little snack, and right now it's myself and someone else that does childcare, but we had it last night. And the support night is literally, they come in and they sit like in a half circle and they talk about what's going well in their life and what's not going well, and a lot of it happens to be around navigating the legal system and where they are in their process of adopting or not adopting, or, you know, there's all kinds of issues, and, yeah.
There are great grandparents raising their children.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, there's a huge
Lots of
number.
Is there is that something you would find on 211 then? Your services?
I don't know if you would at this point, but it's something that needs to be on
It
there.
needs to be on there, definitely.
I think sometimes too, we have to take it a little deeper. I know in my experience as a principal in a more urban environment, we were trying to figure out why we couldn't get parents to come to sessions like that we were having. So we pulled some in and talked to them. And they said, we don't want to come to that stuff. We think you're telling us we're not good people, we're stupid,
Yeah.
we don't know what we're doing. And so we had to stop and build trust first. And get them in, you know, in other ways, and then get at it differently versus saying, come to a parenting class.
The best way too is to get the parents that have come to the class to advocate for the class. Nobody wants to be told,
That's how the
Yeah.
grandparents work.
yep, nobody wants to be told, hey, you should come to this parenting class, because they're automatically gonna assume, oh, I'm not a good enough parent. But if they have this parent over here that they know say, hey, I go to this class once a month and I've learned some really great stuff, you should come with me, they're gonna be more likely to listen to one of their peers than they are to an official person.
And that's how it is with a lot of things.
If we think from an asset perspective and the resiliency and the other characteristics these parents bring to it, and we ask them to come tell us some of those things about their child or their situation, or tell us what your child does at home, tell us about, you know, what you're proud of, bring a picture of your child studying or doing something positive. And then we start to turn it from, you're not doing these things, to, what are you bringing to this? You have strengths we can build upon that stem from here, versus, you're not a good parent or you're not doing.
And in some areas too, they've changed it from being a parenting class to a parent peer support class. So that way they feel like instead of they're being taught how to be better parents, they're instead coming into a room with the issues that they're facing with their kids and being surrounded by a network of parents who may also have the same issues, which makes them feel a little bit more welcomed. Lewis County Public Health also starting a program just recently with new funding called Nurse Family Partnership. It targets women who are pregnant with their first child who are WIC eligible in the first 2 trimesters of their pregnancy. And it's a home visit program where a nurse is assigned to the mom during that part of pregnancy, and they follow that mom all the way up until 2 years old with the kid. So it addresses medical care while they're pregnant, delivery of the child, and then also building goals and wanting to create a better and stable life for the child once it's already born.
And like a grandma.
So another thing, when I started the community dinners, to get families to come, to me, as a mom of 4 kids, I pretty much spent my life following my kids. Wherever they went, I went. So that was kind of my strategy to get parents to come, was to advertise it as a fun time for the kids. And so in a room that was off of the community dinner space where we, whatever people we had there to talk to the parents or whatever, we had this room, and I kind of rounded up some high schoolers to volunteer their time, and we set up little kind of carnival booth type things. So face painting was always a big hit, and it doesn't take up a lot of space or supplies, and you know, beanbag toss and something else, just something. And if I put those posters up and I, you know, community dinner, and then put a few balloons on it, and there's gonna be activities for kids, it's like the kids are going home going, we gotta go to that, we gotta, you know, we gotta be there because this is happening. And so that was a strategy that worked. And once that first year of community dinners happened, then I had the kids asking me, when's the next one? When's the next one? And so we could bring anything in, you know, to educate the parents or to build that, you know, the contact with them, and to just improve on that connection. It didn't matter because the parents were going to be there because the kids were dragging them there. And so that's just another thought about finding some easy, and kids, oh my gosh, you give them boxes to play with, or a big table with butcher paper and some markers left on it. And they just love it. I mean, they're so easily entertained. So
That's how we did it a lot at Boys and Girls Club too, up in Tumwater, is we would have movie nights, we did a talent show for the kids that the kids organized, we had a community dinner, and it was just a matter of getting the kids involved so that they'd be bothering the parents to come. And then once the parents were there, we could interact with the parents while the kids are doing their thing. It was amazing to see the turnaround once we upped those kind of parent-kid involvement nights. Kids see you interacting with their parent when they're not in trouble, which builds resilience, because you might have this 6-year-old, and every time you talk to mom and dad or mom when they're picking them up, it's to say, oh, they hit someone, oh, they spit on someone, oh, they had to be pulled out of their program today. And so they associate a parent role and a mentor role talking to each other only in negative fashions, whereas if they see you communicating and talking about positive things, then they're like, oh, this person cares about me and wants to share that with people. Oh, they're proud of me. Then they're more likely to behave too.
I look at this, seems even more important to me now that people do have the resilience experiences, because a lot of what's under the ACE are what school's all about.
As far as which ones? Oh, the resilience ones?
No, the negative experiences were what's normally experienced. I experienced that's what school's all about. Through being pushed and name called, and
Right.
it was pure negative peer pressure.
Yeah, I'm thinking that if we would have been out there in that line for all 30 questions, there would have been a lot more of a stepping back.
Oh, yeah.
You
Oh,
get
yeah.
into,
It was just a
Yeah.
sample.
yeah, the childhood experiences in the neighborhood or for peers and.
Right, and there are those kind in all 30 questions.
Yeah.
And it's amazing, when I participated in it, in Don and Beagle's class, there were people that were in the back that couldn't step back anymore, and people in the front who couldn't step forward anymore. And it was just amazing. And some of the people who were way far in the back, what they do now as an adult, the resilience was also amazing, because you wouldn't know by looking at people where they came from. And that's really the whole point of this, is we don't know where that person came from that we're working with who's in poverty.
I think it's important too that a lot of the resilience components are going to look different for every kid. So a kid saying, yes, I feel like I'm cared about by my teachers is going to look different. A lot of the kids, by the time they get to elementary school, can communicate that with you too. If you ask them, hey, what do you want when I'm proud of you? When you do a good job, what do you like to see? If you explain kind of that it has to be reasonable, kids can tell you what they like. I use it all the time at Boys and Girls Club. When you're finding that one approach isn't working, I would sit down with a kid. I mean, I know teachers can't always do that in a giant class. I had the ability to. I said, okay, after a streak of 10 bad days when you feel like this kid is hopeless, and you sit down and you say, okay, when you have a good day, what do you want? And then they're like, I want this and this and this, right? And you're like, okay, reasonable. What do you want that we can actually do? I had kids say anything from just, oh, I want to be able to go read my book. And that's it? That's it? When you have a good day, you want to go be able to read by yourself for 20 minutes? They're like, yeah, I never get to do that. I was like, okay. It's amazing when you listen to the kids and listen to what they're motivated by, it's totally separate from what you would assume would be a motivator. So that building resilience is taking your emotions out of it and listening to the kids' emotions and building the resilience off of what they need to be resilient, not off of what you box them as to be.
And that's very powerful for you to say to them, when you have a good day, what do you want? Because then all of a sudden they're getting the message that you believe that they are perfectly capable of having a good day, that you believe that, and you're lining it up, you're setting it up, and then all of a sudden, their shift is like, oh, I mean, yeah, because I worked in juvenile for 4 years and as a detention officer, and I mean, those kids are just like any other kids, and, you know, you got your kind of layer, or the level system, and, you know, drop them, and you can do good, and you raise up, and it's like, well, you know, what would you like? And, you know, sometimes it was, you know, reading, or the ability to do something that was just so simple, but it meant a lot to them, so then they started working towards that.
It gives them ownership of their success, to be able to have a say in what their rewards are. At Boys and Girls Club, that we did like a Child of the Month thing, where we tried to pick kids who normally were really struggling, who might not get that recognition at school or in special activity groups, and have them be recognized at our club when they did have a really good month, so that they could experience that. A lot of those kids, we realized, didn't have a support system at home that cared. So while we raised them up and we had this huge assembly, when they left, mom and dad didn't care, brother and sister didn't care. Everything at home was the same, so they weren't motivated by that. Whereas the kids who were motivated by it are the same kids who are going to school and getting those awards and getting huge recognition at home too. So it's being able to motivate the kid by what they want when they are successful. Okay, if there's no more questions, we have a game.
Game time.
We'll explain the game.
An activity. Woo! Another activity. Yay. So, thank you, Katie. So we're gonna do a game called Paying the Bills.
We do that every month.
Yeah.
Paying
So-
the bills. That's the
Paying the
first thing
bills.
I did that.
I know.
You're all passing out, sweetie.
You're all hand them out, so
Okay.
that, just take one, and, what's first gonna happen is we're gonna work on this. It has a thing on the top that says what we're doing. It says you are the sole supporter of your family, which includes a 5-year-old and an infant.
Sorry.
And you can read them too. You work 40 hours per week, making $8.50 an hour. Sorry.
Wow.
And it's from another state where the minimum wage isn't as high as ours. Because you do not have a high school diploma and have limited job skills, this is the best job you have had in years. Take a look at the list of bills and expenses for this month, which total $3,317, and decide how much of your income in the paid column. Indicate which bills you will pay. In the comment column, write any additional explanations about other ways you might handle your bills, cancel service, pay half, borrow money, sell items to come up with money, etc. Because you earn more than the federal poverty guidelines, you are not eligible for federal or state assistance. But actually, some of those things have changed and you may be eligible. So some of you know that you're eligible, but you get this nice worksheet, and I'm gonna pass out envelopes with money, so that while you're thinking about what bills you're gonna pay, we're gonna think about our bills for about 5 minutes. And then we're gonna pass out some money, and you're gonna come over here and pay your bills. And so, and then when we're done, what we're gonna do, once you pay your bills, we're gonna break into small groups so you can discuss some questions that we have.
So there's
That's our money, it's
coming
payday.
around.
It's
that
payday
has
loan.
money in it.
It's payday.
Oh, can I look?
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody gets the amount that is, what is it, 1,037?
Yeah,
Wow, look at-
$1,300.
And
Here, there's some
it's Donna Beagle money.
I know, it's Donna Beagle money. She charges real cash to buy these.
Well, and who's on the 10 and the 20?
Who doesn't have one?
Who's on the other ones? I don't recognize
Probably
the
your
other
sister
people.
and a cousin.
Oh.
You'll see in your envelope, there
And a
is a
baby.
white card
Oh, there's
in
a
there.
baby.
Please don't write on that. Please write on the big piece of paper that has
Does everybody
trophies
have one?
and not the.
Okay, what's our budget again? Oh, it's right here.
None of us got.
Katie, could you pass one more sheet back down on the paying bills?
How much money do we have again?
$1,307.
Okay, so, yeah, don't write on the which bills did you pay sheet, if that's all right. But look behind it, because some of you are lucky enough
Oh, that's our.
to get a
budgeting.
purple
She does
paper.
a budget each
But
month.
this one we can write on.
Yes, yes. So some of you are lucky enough to get a purple paper, I should have 6 of them. Who has purple papers?
In my envelope?
But
Yeah.
mine says, oh no, I got, that's not good.
Yeah, we'll tell him, as soon as, I gotta make sure everybody has one, he has one, you have one.
I don't have one.
I think the question is probably.
Yeah, that's your money. So, people who have, I should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, one more person, because there's 6.
$7.50 for my rent?
Yeah, okay, so if you have a purple paper to take into consideration,
Yeah,
let me hear let's start with you. What is your purple?
mine's not good. I had a relative that gambled $60 of my bill money, so I'm $60 short of the 307.
Yeah, so subtract that from
Yeah,
yours,
thanks,
and
Michelle.
and when you go to pay your bills.
Yeah, I'm gonna be short.
So, you have one, and yours says, oh no, your child is sick, it costs $40 for copay and medicine. So you're gonna subtract that
We're
$40.
gonna go to the free clinic on Tuesday by the hospital.
Oh, what about my gambling?
That's where I'm going.
Okay, what does yours say?
Oh no, your car bill probably costs $75 to fix it.
Yeah, so put that
Well,
in your
now you know how
envelope.
to write twin transit.
I live in Alaska, there's no train.
Yeah.
I was trying.
Okay, what about yours?
Oh, why is that mean? You got a few drinks and you have $40 less to pay your bills.
Oh!
Because the kid was sick.
Yeah.
Because the kid was sick and he had no money for copays.
Well, I live more pure than the rest of you. I have, oh yes, you worked an extra shift, you have $60 more.
Oh! Nice, Carolyn.
And what does yours say?
It says, oh no, my mom's car got towed.
You helped her out, because that's what families do.
$75 here.
Oh.
Okay, so you guys are lucky, only those 6 have to figure out, well, except for Carolyn who gets to add money.
Yeah.
Let's see
Lucky
what
Carolyn.
she's gonna buy with that.
You guys are kind of cool.
Kind of cruel.
Go ahead
No,
and
this is
distribute
reality.
You know, this is really real life. This is more than real life. There's a lot,
There is, because I
This
just
is-
did my bill.
if you're on TANF
Been there, done that.
with a 5-year-old and an infant, you probably, what is it now? It's still around $540 a month. that
You get childcare subsidies, but you have to pay a huge.
Well, they
copay.
had a huge cut, yeah,
Yeah.
with huge co-pays. And if you don't pay those co-pays, you don't get childcare. And I think that this $400 may be the copay. Because I don't know where you're getting a babysitter for 40 hours for 40 hours a week for.
Your mother takes care of it.
Exactly, that's what I wrote online.
When they go to school.
So in a couple minutes, all of you guys are gonna get up and you're going to actually put your dollars in the bags for what bills you paid. The bags back there in alphabetical order will let you up in little groups so you don't run over each other. So try to have it kind of separated good on your paper.
We have to sell everything in the car.
Do we mark here where we pay?
On paper, you're gonna write how much that you're paying.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm
That way-
paying the bills, so that when you go over there, it'll be easier.
Yeah, so in the paid column, you wanna write how much you're paying towards the amount that's needed, that way you know how much to put in each bag. Like there is an apartment rent bag that if you're paying the whole $750, you're gonna put $750 in the apartment rent bag.
But if we don't pay all $750, will we get evicted?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's the
If they
choice.
take it, you won't.
That's the choice that you have to make. And I like to cheat and say things like, oh, $750, they actually paid, water and sewer garbage should be paid. But that isn't, I'm moving to a cheaper apartment. Those are some of the things that you could write on there, is what your choice is. But
it's December and I can go to energy assistance and get my electricity.
right, and those are the kind of things you could write down. That's how I was doing things.
Yeah, so under comments, if you think of a resource like that you're gonna use instead of paying the bill, write it in the comments, because after we pay in the bills, or in the bags, We're gonna break you guys into small groups, and then you're gonna go talk about what you paid, why you prioritize that, what you would do instead of paying a bill.
Yes, ma'am. I don't need to eat because I get food stamps. Just saying. Then I'm going to the food bank. I only have like $20 left. I have
Yeah,
to go
next-
to groceries, yeah.
Next-
We're going to the food bank with me.
That's
Then
right. The four non-negotiables,
Well,
I ran the money already.
we're going to the
Yeah,
gospel
it's-
gospel mission.
that's-
They're gonna-
Every
done.
I'm
day.
done.
You're
I'm gonna
done.
have to stiff, I'm gonna have to stiff the landlord what's left here.
Yeah.
So we did go to the Union Gospel Mission to the, and,
I saw one of our friends today in Centralia.
yeah, and so some of you know that that's an option. You could go there every single day and think about what we ate there, which is pretty good. And then you get that bag lunch to go. Sometimes those people, that's all they have all day, is what they got there. And on weekends, like Sunday, the bus doesn't run.
What is rent to own payment?
Like a lot of people rent TVs and
Oh.
beds and furniture and, you know the place.
Errands.
Aaron,
I don't
like
know.
errands, yeah.
Like errands.
Errands is one, there's
And
one,
that's not
is it
free.
Buddies?
Yeah,
Buddies is another one.
Buddies,
Rent to
Buddies.
own?
Yeah.
Rent to own.
Rent a center.
Yeah, rent a center.
Because some people get themselves a place, they don't have any furniture, and they have several rent to own.
Right.
And they pay the first one, and then, or a couple of them, and then they get to the point where they're like, I can't pay that
I can't
$25.
pay that anymore.
And then they just worry every day, or don't care every day, that Rent-A-Center's coming over and getting their furniture. Cause they want the biggest, best TV.
Yep. I had a counselor call up their McKinney-Vento people and ask if there was anything. They qualified last year and they just wanted to make sure that they were okay this year. And there was one father that admitted that he was renting to own. He was okay. They found a place, but they were paying $200 a month for laundry or washing machine dryer, and if we knew of anybody that had a washing machine dryer. So I hooked him up with the DB Cooper people.
Yeah, $200.
Yes, and she said she'd work with them, so hopefully they did what, yeah. So
In your job, Pat, do you, when you make a referral like that or a connection, do you follow up in a few weeks to see?
I'll
So
probably
just
follow up
pause?
with Gaynor Fitzgerald. She's the counselor at
Oh, okay.
Oakview.
Just because I like to always know what the outcome is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Versus statistical wise.
So some of you, if you need change, let me know.
You're so funny. I'm being very frugal, and I have $200 left, but I have an explanation for everything. So, yeah.
Well, we were going to have an actual food box in case you think that going to the food bank one time a month will cover your groceries, but we're gonna do that. We're gonna do that next week. We're gonna have a food box next week, and you'll see.
What are the food bank options nowadays?
They're actually, it depends on where you live.
We'll just call 211 and it'll tell us.
Well, there's a lot of places that will have the lists. I have a list, I don't know how accurate it is.
Yeah, the church has one every Thursday night.
I'm done.
Oh.
I'm overspent by $20.
But a lot of them are just like where we went.
So-
You know, it's not, or you can get a box, or,
Guess I'll cut back.
I
on
know
my
that Salvation Army, if you get lunches, then you can't get a
food
box.
Oh,
box.
did they do lunches? Have they canceled that lunch program? I thought.
No, I think they're doing lunches. I don't know. I should ask them when I pick
Yeah.
up. When I pick up, I meant to go pick up my tea box today.
I am finding myself depressed and.
Yeah, it is kind of depressing, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So, are there people, can we get like 5 people to go pay their bills? Because I'm a landlord and I need my money now.
You need your money?
So when you guys get in the small groups, you will find that there are some people who have a lot of, they'll have a lot of ideas. Like she has a lot of ideas.
of what to do. And you'll find that that's what happens when you work with these people, that they are very resilient, that they have, even though they're in poverty, they have a way to
I'm gonna have
figure
to
it out.
like Tina Cole is gonna pick me my filter. Filter tea and my snack option.
That's what I wrote.
And I'm gonna volunteer in your, I'm gonna volunteer
So
in your
Pat,
class.
when you're done paying, maybe you can show us where the rooms are.
Oh, sure. That's why I volunteered.
Okay.
And they're gonna be that age again, or?
No.
They need to have.
And we'll have the first pain group go together.
Michelle, I was gonna do 4 groups, that way there's 5 or 6 people in each group.
Okay.
I've plugged in
Well,
$2.
we have 5 people right now paying their bills.
Perfect.
Okay.
You wanna put them, when they're done paying, in a Sunday schoolroom?
Yes.
I'm going to a parent support class and Kelly is going to help me. I'm gonna make this work.
I am gonna watch your children.
Sitting on something.
And in return, I get to use,
Oh, okay. Samsung though, just blew up. You know what? Seriously.
Be careful, you guys, some of your money will stick together.
They were talking about doing washing machines and my mom was hoping they could wait until Black Friday, he was kind of acting up. And that very morning. So he had to go get my washing machine. And he was smoking in the back. So all the fire department. Oh, they do blow up, but I don't know what it sounds.
I have money left, so I don't know what.
For my husband, I just said, it's yours now.
Okay, I'm sorry, I was
It's all right.
We're buying our phones. Oh, you have that.
Ready to go.
Water bill, where's the water bill?
So as you're finished, I'm gonna take the next 5 people that are done over in this area, we'll go to group right here.
Here, you want to put mine in there for me if you go down there?
Find it, water bill.
So it's going. Yeah, it's going. Yeah.
Here, let me have a thing.
Coffee here before I take
I left one in there.
Oops, I see water bill.
We were all like,
Got the water bill in there.
Okay, I'm gonna
all my
for
years
some
as a
shoes.
liaison.
Let's have the shoes on.
I'm with you.